Villains are usually willing to go to extremes and use deadly tactics. This means when villains fight villains, no one holds back.
What makes a fight brutal? Let's find out. Capable of making any command and having the people around him go through with it regardless of the nature of the request, there's almost no one who can resist the powers of Purple Man. It makes him a truly terrifying villain, but there is at least one person who has resisted the influence of Purple Man, and his name is Victor. Victor Von Doom. I'll admit this may not be brutal in the traditional sense. In Avengers Emperor Doom by David Michelin and Bob Hall, Dr. Doom abducts the Purple Man and puts him in a psychoprism that amplifies his powers and uses him to gain mind control over the Avengers, with the plan being to then take over the rest of the world. From his prison, Purple Man curses at Dr. Doom and basically says that Doom doesn't deserve the power he is stealing from Purple Man. But don't you dare hurl such insults at Dr. Doom. Doom orders everyone else in the room to leave, he takes off his mask, removes the shield that kept the Purple Man from controlling him, and he confronts Purple Man head on. Given this massive opening, Purple Man orders Doom to be his servant, he demands he stands on his head, take a flying leap, and even hard delete himself. But by sheer force of will, Doom resists the Purple Man's commands, horrifying Purple Man into obedience, and it is awesome.
One of the most epic fights ever went down between Perpetua and the Batman Who Laughs. At the time, both of these characters were absolute powerhouses. I mean, Perpetua just naturally is, and Batman Who Laughs had the power of Dr. Manhattan at this time. In fact, he was no longer known as Batman Who Laughs, but instead had taken up the mantle of the One Who Laughs. Now that he had Dr. Manhattan's power set. I guess once you have that much of a power upgrade, time to change your whole name up and just become the One. Not the Dr. Manhattan though, by the way, but instead an alternate reality version of Batman who happened to also be a version of Dr. Manhattan, because that's the whole thing basically. Despite the fact that Perpetua is one of the most powerful beings in all of the cosmos, the One Who Laughs managed to trick her into getting the crisis energy that would have powered her, putting him more on her level. Then they fought until all her power was his.
The two strongest foes Superman has ever faced are almost definitely Darkseid and Doomsday, and when they ended up fighting each other, it was absolutely nuts. In Superman/Doomsday Hunter/Prey #1, Doomsday attacks Apocalypse after returning back to life. Now once Darkseid warns his master that Doomsday is demolishing the world, Darkseid decides to take matters into his own hands, and unceremoniously receives a seriously humiliating beating. Darkseid blasts Doomsday with an Omega Beam, and it does basically nothing. Doomsday then delivers a series of massive blows that makes quick work of the tyrant. The fact that Doomsday is basically a mindless killing machine, Darkseid's manipulative fear tactics don't do diddly squat against Doomsday whatsoever. It's so bad that in the following issues, when Superman makes his way to Apocalypse with other DC heroes and attempts to defeat Doomsday once and for all, Darkseid, licking his wounds, actually agrees to help the Man of Steel stop Doomsday, with the collected group leaving Doomsday all the way at the end of time to finally defeat him.
Harley is by far one of my favorite characters over at DC Comics, which is why I thought I knew how this fight involving her would go. And not just because she is my favorite character, but also because she is extremely popular across the board. Plot armor is a real thing, my friends. Not only that, but Harley is more experienced and has accomplished impressive feats in the past, like taking out the entire Holy Trinity of the Justice League in one single fight, that I think may have even been on like one single page or something like that. It was pretty short. But that didn't guarantee her a victory this time around. The fight between Harley Quinn and Punchline, Joker's new partner in crime, was inevitable due to their shared connection to the Joker. Although, to be clear, Harley was Joker's girlfriend during her time as his partner in crime, and Punchline seemed to be more just strictly business. Some people still say that she's Joker's girlfriend, but as far as I know, I don't think she actually is. Surprisingly, despite being new, Punchline was also extremely popular and surprised readers when she seemingly handily defeated Harley Quinn in a brutal fashion, leaving her to basically die in the sewers. Don't worry though, this is Harley Quinn we're talking about, so she did survive this fight, and even for a time, a very limited time, sported a badass scar that she'd gotten from the encounter across her neck. That is, until everyone else forgot about it and it just magically vanished, because this is comics.
The question of who is stronger between the Mad Titan Thanos and the time-traveling Kang the Conqueror has been one asked for a while. They don't normally fight each other very often, and they both somewhat rely on extra items. Like, if Thanos has the Infinity Gauntlet, obviously he's got a major advantage, and when Kang doesn't have his suit, he's basically useless. But these two did actually fight each other, although I'll admit for this point they did fight each other in an out-of-continuity comic. Taking place in Avengers Mech Strike number 4 by Jed MacKay and artist Carlos Magno, Kang has hooked himself up to the body of a Celestial, which gives him basically godlike levels of power. In response to that, the Avengers decide to bring in a young version of Thanos in order to face Kang. Now this Thanos comes from a time before the character becomes aware that the Avengers will be one of his main adversaries in the future. The two battle it out for about a minute, but then Kang simply grabs Thanos by the neck and forces time through his body, aging him up literally an eternity in a matter of seconds and leaving only a Thanos-sized skeleton behind.
One of my favorite, most brutal moments in all of comic book history, we are talking about the fight of Dr. Doom versus Thanos. What a fight. Now granted, these two were fighting not necessarily on the most even of playing fields, if I'm being honest. Doom at the time was considered God Emperor Doom when he ended up as the ruler of the entire multiverse for a while. This happened during Secret Wars, something we might soon be seeing coming to the MCU in some form, and probably a version of this exact Secret Wars from 2015 as opposed to the original Secret Wars or Secret Wars 2, which are both from the 80s. During Secret Wars, Doom accepted the responsibility and power needed to reshape the multiverse during the final incursions, and ended up ruling over a patchwork sort of world he had built out of the collision, with each Earth sort of inhabiting its own realm or province in this new world. One of the people who dared to try and stand up against him was Thanos. But he made quick work of the Mad Titan, thanks to Doom having absolute power here, so yeah. Didn't stand a chance. Granted, this was all part of a larger plot to topple his regime, so although Thanos lost because he was part of that plot, kind of won.
The Earth 3 Superman is a very evil version of the character. Going by the name Ultraman, he is Superman, but power obsessed, fueled by kryptonite, and an incredibly ruthless dude. In the Adventures of Superman John Kent series, Ultraman obtained a device which allowed him to drain the power of his alternate universe counterparts, and he embarked on a mission throughout the multiverse, taking out and draining every Superman that he could find. John was recruited by Earth 2 Superman to stop Ultraman, and he confronted him on Earth 49, where Ultraman overpowered John until the son of Superman unleashed a new exotic energy power which helped John knock down Ultraman before he collapsed of exhaustion. But just as Ultraman was talking about traveling to John's home universe and wiping out Lois Lane, the Superman of Earth 49 showed up, and what do you know, it was another evil Superman. The Superman of the Injustice comics and games. And that guy snapped Ultraman's neck like it was nothing, ending Ultraman once and for all right there and then. It's nuts, but it was so awesome.
Who are two of the craziest villains that you could ever imagine fighting from Marvel Comics and DC Comics? And what if I told you they did? Back in the good old days when Amalgam Comics was around, Carnage and the Joker actually ran into each other and even briefly teamed up with one another before Carnage ultimately decided the Joker was too crazy even for him. Carnage was more interested in murder and mayhem, whereas Joker was more interested in creating elaborate plots to torment his victims more slowly and kinda just making a bunch of jokes. This caused the two to turn on each other. Carnage tried to fillet Joker while Joker sneakily got away and blew up the warehouse they'd been hiding out in. Of course, this wasn't enough to destroy Carnage, but that was when Batman and Spider-Man showed up on the scene, prompting the villains to turn their fighting against the heroes instead of one another.
Following Marvel's Secret Invasion, Norman Osborn was handed control over the Avengers. Hiring a bunch of villains and giving them the iconic looks of some of the mainline Avengers, this new team of Dark Avengers became the world's premier superhero team. Now after receiving a distress call from Dr. Doom, a member of Norman's inner circle of dastardly devils called the Cabal, Osborn led the Dark Dark Avengers on their first mission, to save Doom and Latveria from a horde of demons led by Morgan Le Fay. While the Avengers appear to immediately win the battle thanks to the Sentry, Morgan, being a time traveler, simply returned from the past and took out Sentry and turned Ares into stone. As more and more of the Dark Avengers fell, Osborn asked Doom to use the time machine located in his armor, bringing the two of them to 690 AD to defeat Morgan in her own era. Unfortunately, Morgan points out that Doom can't simply wipe her out since it will jeopardize the timeline and cause a paradox. So what does Doom do? He casts a spell that gets Morgan sucked up by a cauldron and sent all the way back to England, but in 1 million BC, where she has to deal with being hunted by dinosaurs and trying to survive. Dr. Doom is my favorite. I love him. He's so cool.
I feel like anytime Magneto and Red Skull clash, it's bound to be brutal due to their history. They have had a few fairly brutal encounters, and what's even more wild is that Magneto doesn't even use his magnetic powers, usually, to dispatch Red Skull. More often than not, including this time, he manages to come up with a seemingly worse punishment than that. I mean, at least if Magneto used his powers on you, it could be over quickly, although could being the important word there. But this time around, during Axis, Magneto preferred for Red Skull's demise to be, as he put it, as pure as possible, choosing to only use his fists.
And nerds, that is the end of the video.
Thank you so much for watching today on Top 10 Nerd. I'm Amanda McKnight.
I'm Adam McAndrews, and we will catch you nerds on the flippy flop. Stay safe and peace out.
Bye!